Welcome to MTG Friends, I'm Ryan, and in this Commander deck tech, we're going to be doing Liesa, Shroud of Dusk. This is a 2-colorless white-black legendary creature angel with a 5/5 body that is flying and lifelink and has, rather than pay 2 colorless for each previous time you've cast this spell from the command zone this game, pay 2 life that many times. So your commander tax ends up getting converted to life, which is fantastic. And whenever a player casts a spell, they lose 2 life. We're going to lever this in this particular build by having lots and lots of ways of doing life gain and then also punishing the opponent for our life gain as well, and punish them for losing life, just everything and anything you can think of that's regarding life. We also have a few alt win conditions that are just bananas great when it comes to life gain. So as in all of our deck techs, we have certain packages. Here are the packages. We have control, a few pieces for that, ramp, removal, life gain is a huge component of this, protection, the land base, draw, and then of course we got to have a little bit of shenanigans and a couple alt win combo pieces. Alright, and then as usual we have a little maybe board on the side for budgetary swaps and considerations for different cards you may want to swap in and out depending on your play style and if there's a particular card you really like to play in these particular colors. So we're doing Orzhov, we're doing white-black. Here we go. So let's start with control, because that apparently is what Arcaduck has said we're starting with. And let's start with Blind Obedience. This is out of gate crash. It's an enchantment with extort. Whenever you cast a spell, you may pay black or white. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Now, on the surface of this, it doesn't seem like that would be that big of a deal, but having all of their artifacts and creatures come in tapped really slows the game down, really lets us put our pieces into place so that we can do what this deck does well, and that is gain life and continually get them to lose life by not necessarily hitting them with creatures, although we have plenty of creatures to do that with. Alright, Blind Obedience, great include. Kunaros, Hound of Aetherios, something like that. It's a 3-drop, 3/3 legendary creature hound. This is great because we are not running animation spells in this build. So this is going to shut that stuff down. It's got Vigilance, Menace, and there you go, Lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from graveyards. This is really going to shut down anybody that has a type of deck that's playing with the graveyard. What a great include, and it really isn't going to cost you much to get this into your 99. Great include with lifelink as a bonus. Opposition Agent. This is right out of Commander Legends. I could foresee this continuing to go up in price and value because it's just that good. It's a 3-drop, 3/2 human rogue with flash. So you flash this in when your opponent does the following. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. And there's always going to be tutoring going on, especially if you're playing against 3 other people. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. What an incredibly powerful card that really messes with your opponents, because they go to tutor for a card or even multiple cards, then you get to go decide what they are, put them aside permanently, so even if the agent gets killed off, you still get to play those cards as long as they're in exile for the remainder of the game. This is fantastic, a great surprise, and just a huge answer for tutoring that is very common in EDH. Next up is some protection. Flawless Maneuver. This is in here because you have the potential of casting this for nothing. It's a 3-drop instant. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Just an incredibly powerful protection piece that is really going to help shift the game and often is a surprise. Lightning Greaves, yep, we want to protect our commander as best we can, and we're going to do it with this. Of course, if our commander isn't out and we have something else, we can protect it as well. And it equips for 0. And we don't have a bunch of shenanigans to put on to our creatures, so having this with Shroud is totally fine. And the added benefit of having haste, of course. Alright, in terms of protection, because we're dealing with a lot of life gain and just trying to slow the board down, this one's great. It's a 4-drop out of Eldraine. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controller loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it really keeps them from protecting if they've gone really wide, especially with 1/1 creatures, because it's going to be a net result where you end up not losing life and they end up losing life. So, very cool. Teferi's Protection, the ultimate in protection. All of your permanents phase out until, untap step. That's right. Just a great, incredibly powerful protection piece. Crested Sunmare. This is in the shenanigans section. Other horses you control have indestructible. At the beginning of each end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 5/5 white horse creature token. So this does a couple things. Because we are dealing with a lot of life gain, which we'll get to in the life gain package, there is most likely on every turn going to be the circumstance where you're creating a 5/5 horse. And then on top of that, if Crested Sunmare is alive with those horses still, all those horses are indestructible. Fantastic. So if they're trying to do spot removal or mass removal, even if they do mass removal, the Sunmare is the one that's going to die and the rest of them are going to stay alive. So great. So great. Norn's Annex. It's 3 Phyrexian. Phyrexian can be paid with either white or 2 life. Creatures can't attack you or a planeswalker you control unless their controller pays 2 life for each of those creatures. That is just right in the theme of punishing them for us gaining life, them having to pay. It's just, this is a very synergetic card in this build. I love this card. And I love Phyrexian mana. I've just always had a special place in my heart for Phyrexian mana spells. Sanguine Bond. Again, this is with our whole life gain theme. For 5, it's an enchantment. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So you're going to start pinging them for a massive amount of life with this out on the battlefield. Wound Reflection, same kind of theme here. For 6 enchantment at the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. Aetherflux Reservoir. So there are cards in here that we're going to be managing our life gain, so to speak, where we might spend some life to play a spell, etc., etc. But for the most part, we're going to just keep gaining life as much as possible, trying to keep our opponents from hitting us in the face. Aetherflux Reservoir is fantastic if we have a lot of unspent life to spend. For 4, it's an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life for each spell you've cast this turn. Pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So most likely, you're going to be able to knock one of your opponents out relatively early on in the game, because you should be able to get 50 life very easily, very quickly in this kind of a life gaining build. Of course, then you'll start having people gang up on you and you got to really manage your life. So be careful when you decide to spend the 50 life. Make sure you have plenty left over so that you can weather the storm of your opponent's wrath. Your opponent's wrath for sure. Angel of Destiny is a new one as of this recording out of Zendikar Rising. This is an alt win condition, one of the few we have in here. This is a flyer double striker for 5, and it's a 2/6 body. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, each player Angel of Destiny attack this turn loses the game. That's pretty bananas. So it's not going to be an OT kill, one turn kill, or a one turn alt win life gain situation, but you can start knocking out your opponents each turn if you can keep Angel of Destiny alive. And it needs a measly 15 extra life from your starting 40. Not too shabby. Very cool, and I love that it has double strike. Approach of the Second Sun. Yes, another alt win. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library 7th from the top and you gain 7 life. So the 7 life is a great bonus because we're all about life gain in this build, but being able to play this twice isn't that difficult, especially because we're running a couple tutors, so we can tutor this out for the second play. We just got to watch out for our opponents countering the second time you try to play it. Great alt win card. It is a spendy card, so this is going to be late game shenanigans for sure. Felidar Sovereign. Definitely a very cool alt win instantly. It's Vigilance Lifelink at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have 40 or more life, you win the game. So you gotta have as much or more as when you started the game, and it's gotta survive one turn. So, yep, Felidar Sovereign, a fantastic white alt win card. Definitely one of those near auto includes, because I never say auto include ever. Because you subscribers jump on me when I say auto include. So I do respect it. So I'm not saying auto include, although I kind of am in Lifegain. This is great. Heliod Sun Crown, which combos up with Walking Ballista. This is an alt win because you can hit them for infinite damage with Heliod Sun Crown out, as well as Walking Ballista, as long as you have 2 available mana after you have both of them in play. So you spend the 2 mana, you remove a 1/1 counter from Walking Ballista, you ping one of your opponents, which then gives Heliod then gives a +1/+1 counter onto it because you have given it lifelink with that extra 2 mana. And then you repeat until everyone's dead and time to scoop and play again. Maybe with the same deck. Who knows? Who knows? Alright, Test of Endurance for 4 at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have 50 or more life, you win the game. Pretty self-explanatory. And we already talked about Walking Ballista, Heliod. Alright, we're on to ramp. Arcane Signet, yep, we're going to play that. Crypt Ghast, it's a 4-drop that does more than just mana ramp, but I figured it's more of a mana ramp piece than anything else. With Extort, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay black or white. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. You know, all of this life gain starts adding up, and as we're doing it, they're losing life. Oh, it's just so fun. But kind of keep it inside because you don't want to start ticking off your opponents, especially if they're your friends. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool in addition to the mana the land produces. So it starts doubling up on the mana. And we have a couple land pieces that we'll get to in the land section that this is going to ramp up swimmingly, folks, swimmingly. Alright, this is right out of Commander Legends, a newer one. This one helps us ramp immensely well. Keeper of the Accord for 4. It's basically sort of a land tax rolled into other extra cool stuff. It's a 3/4 body human soldier at the beginning of each opponent's end step. If that player controls more creatures than you, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. But even better, at the beginning of each opponent's end step, if that player controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a basic plains card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Oh boy, so we can keep up with those green decks that just keep dropping lands onto the battlefield. Love this card for it. Alright, Mana Crypt, yep. Orzhov Signet, so that we can get the Orzhov colors out there. Smothering Tithe, another near auto include for anyone running white because it lets you ramp up incredibly well. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If the player doesn't, you create a colorless treasure artifact token with sack it for any color. Love, love, lovely. And then a Soul Ring, Talisman in Orzhov colors. And now we're to the land base. And as I say in almost every deck tech we do, the land base is the most versatile, most swappable segment of our deck, so that you can start doing budgetary swaps if needed. This is what we have for this build, and we think it works very well. Agadeem's Awakening. This is that cool modal card mechanics that they have out of Zendikar Rising, so you can either use it to return creatures out of your graveyard, or you can drop it for a black mana on the other side, and it can come in tapped for 3 damage. And then Ancient Tomb, you can tap it for 2 and it costs you 2, and that doesn't matter in this Lifegain deck. Arcane Lighthouse. So for 1, until end of turn, creatures your opponent control lose Hexproof and Shroud and can't have Hexproof or Shroud. So I decided to put this utility land in there so that we can remove some of that Hexproof and some of that Shroud going on with a lot of builds that are just trying to Voltron their creatures up, or other situations. This one is certainly a swappable card for another land that you might prefer. I like this card particularly well in a lot of builds I run. Alright, Who Shelters All. I should probably say the first part, but I always mess it up. Boseiju. In the comments, tell me if I'm saying that right. I don't know if I am. Alright. Boseiju, Who Shelters All, comes into play tap. Pay 2 life, add 1 to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on an instant or sorcery spell, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. Just a great utility card to make sure that our spells go through. Cabal Coffers. For 2, add black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. And we are running Uborg, so all of them will be swamps as long as we have Uborg out there as well. So this is just a great include for our build. Caves of Koilos, a dual land for 1 damage. And Command Tower. Amiria's Call, another one of those modal with white on the other side, and you can also, for a pretty exorbitant amount of mana, you can create 4/4, 2 of them, 4/4 White Angel Warriors, and get all of your non-angel creatures indestructible to end of turn. Alright, another mana fixing for our color base, Fetid Heath. Flagstones, yeah, why wouldn't you run Flagstones? There's no downside to running Flagstones in white. Alright, we got our Shockland in black-white. And then another dual color. This one comes in tapped unless you have a plains or a swamp, which you probably will. Marsh Flats is the fetch land of our colors. And then we're running a minimal amount of plains. We're running 6 in this particular build. And then, of course, Scrubland, the original gangster dual land. If you don't have it, swap it out for another dual, even one that comes in tapped, or even a basic land for that matter. All right, another dual. And that one you can sack for a card. Probably should have said that. You can sack it for a draw. All right, we're running 9 swamps. And then we are running Tainted Field as well for some more dual action. Then, like I was saying, we're running Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth to make all of our land swamps in addition to other land types. Vault of Champions. This is a cool one that if you have more than 2 opponents, it's dual and it comes in untapped. Vault of the Archangel. This you can pay 4 creatures you control, gain Death Touch and Lifelink. Most of the creatures in this do have Lifelink, so that's not as important, but hey, it's all good. Especially we have Lifelink and Death Touch. And this one is new out of Commander Legends. It's War Room. For 3 mana, pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color's identity, and you draw a card. What a great way to draw cards, especially if you're in monocolor or dual. Probably wouldn't recommend, or I wouldn't recommend putting this in if you're running like more than 2 colors, because then you start losing lots of life. However, the life gain that we have built into this is making this not so bad. All right, now we're into our removal, spot removal, and mass removal. Anguished Unmaking, huge staple in black-white. Exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. Damnation, yes. We love me some damnation. Destroy all creatures, can't be regenerated. Deadly Rollick is one of those really cool ones that it'll cost you nothing if your commander's out. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Exile target creature. And I love that it exiles and doesn't just destroy it. Dismember. This is for those really sticky, persnickety creatures on the other side of the table that you just got to try to get rid of. And it is with Phyrexian mana as well. So for 1 Phyrexian, target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Great spot removal. Then Fumigate. Destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed that way. It costs you 5. And then we have Swords to Plowshares. Remove target creature from the game. The creature's controller gains life equal to its power. That's fine. We're okay with that. Vindicate. Destroy target permanent. And it's a permanent, which is fabulous. Alright, new added Jumpstart. Witch of the Moors. It's got Death Touch for 5. It's a 4/4 drop. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, which is going to be almost all the time, each opponent sacrifices a creature and you return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. What an incredibly powerful card out of Jumpstart. I would suggest picking at least one of these up if you don't have it, because I have a feeling once they stop doing Jumpstart, if it doesn't get reprinted, this thing is going to steadily go up in price. Witch of the Moors is just unique enough and just cool enough. I think it's going to find a home in a lot of EDH decks. Bolas' Citadel, yep, very much a staple in Lifegain builds. For 3 black. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. So this is a very efficient way to start sifting through your deck, start playing to get a huge board presence. And because we most likely have a fairly large pool of life, we can really start levering this and start managing the life and what we need out on the board to start swinging it our way for the win. Dawn of Hope, another cool little life gainer. Whenever you gain life, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. And for 4, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. This is more for the being able to draw a card, since of course we are in the draw section. Alright, next up we have Demonic Tutor. You may search your library for a card and put it in your hand for a measly 2. And I always say this in every episode I do with Demonic Tutor. I love that it puts it in your hand and it only costs you 2. Lighten Tutor, this puts an enchantment or an artifact at the top of your library and it costs you only 1. Great staple in white. Erebos, God of the Dead. This is in here because of the draw mechanics. You can pay 2 life and black colorless and you draw a card. And of course it's also a god, which, you know, can certainly help if you have enough out on the board presence for devotion. Alright, this one is brand new. Almost said rand new. Randy, feeling very randy. Brandy? Okay, I digress. Mangara the Diplomat out of Core 21. This is a legendary human cleric with lifelink, a 2/4. Whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking you and or planeswalkers you control, draw a card. And even more interestingly, whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, draw a card. This is just a draw machine. It's an incredible card, and I have a feeling this is also going to find a home in a lot of white builds because of that draw mechanic and just the extra shenanigans of just being able to have that in white. Yes, sir. And then I decided it was more prudent to put Phyrexian Arena in here than Necropotence. Those two are easily swappable depending on which one you prefer. I prefer Phyrexian Arena in this particular build. It's a 3-drop at the beginning of your upkeep. You draw a card and you lose 1 life. Vampiric Tutor. Yep, another tutor to put at the top of your library. Alright, and this is definitely all about draw. Villas, Broker of the Blood. It's spendy. It's 5 black, black, black. It's an 8/8 flyer. But wait, you can, for black, pay 2 life. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. But more importantly, whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. That is very cool. Just got to be really careful if somebody's swinging in hard and they hit you for, I don't know, 10. That means that you're going to be taking 10 cards, which, if they're trying to mill you, is not a good thing. So just be very careful how you play this and when you play this and what kind of decks you're playing against. Well of Lost Dreams for 4. Whenever you gain life, you may pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained. If you do, draw X cards. So just very good drawing mechanics with Well of Lost Dreams. So the theme here is just all about life gain. I know I'm saying that a lot, but that is truly what this is about. All right, and we are in the life gain section. So we got Ajani, Strength of the Pride. Now, this is fine and dandy. It's uptick, which gives you life equal to the creatures. But more importantly is its 0 ability, which in this instance is its ultimate trigger. So if you have at least 15 life more than you started with, you get to exile all artifacts and creatures your opponent control. That is fantastic. It exiles itself as well. But this is just an incredible board clear that doesn't clear your stuff. Alhammarret's Archive for 5. If you would gain life, you gain twice that much life instead. If you would draw a card except the first one you draw in each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. Ooh, that's wordy. So basically, it's got draw, it's got life gain, it's got all the things we need in this particular build. Archangel of Thune. It's a 5-drop 3/4 angel. This is back from Core 2014. It's a flyer lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. That's each creature. So hopefully you have a board presence, and when this thing triggers, it just makes things gigantic. Authority of the Consuls. It costs a measly 1 white enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped, which can really help slow down the board so that you can get all your pieces in place. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain 1 life. And it's got that added benefit of continually keeping that life gain going. That momentum. Blood Artist. Who doesn't love a little life gain with Blood Artist? It's 2-drop 0/1. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Alright, Bloodchief Ascension. This is one you may or may not be familiar with. It's a 1-drop enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief's Ascension. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life. If you do, you gain life. So not only are we gaining life, they're losing life. Fits right into the 99. Divinity of Pride. It is in the white-black for all 5 of these. It's a Spirit Avatar flying lifelink for 4/4 body. Divinity of Pride gets 4/4 as long as you have 25 or more life, which basically we're starting with. So hey, this thing is an 8/8 almost always. I mean, unless you're getting beat down by your opponents. This thing is a monster for 5. Kirk, Son of Yawgmoth. Yes, we can't go without Kirik in a life gain deck. 4 Phyrexian. It's a 2/2. Phyrexian can be paid with either black or 2 life, and it's got lifelink. For each black in a cost, you may pay 2 life rather than pay that mana. Whenever you cast a black spell, put a 1/1 counter on Kirik. So we have enough black mana spells that this thing's going to get bigger. We can lever this to start teasing things out. This has just got all the stuff we need for this build. Kirik, oh, one of my favorite cards of all time. Cabal Consul of Allocation. It is colorless black-white 2/3 human advisor. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So there's just so many ways our opponents continually keep losing life and we keep gaining life in this very janky fun build. Karlov of the Ghost Council. Spirit Advisor. Whenever you gain life, put 2 1/1 counters on Karlov of the Ghost Council, and for 2, remove 6 1/1 counters from Karlov of the Ghost Council. Exile target creature. So it's got the exile mechanic, which is great, and we're gaining so much life so often, we're going to have plenty of counters on this thing as long as you keep it alive. Keep it alive! Alright, Kokusho, the Evening Star. It's for 6. It's a flyer. This is out of the Champions of Kamigawa. I remember playing a lot back then. When it dies, you get 5 life for each opponent, and each opponent loses 5 life, which is why we have this in here. And it's a flyer. It's beefy. It's a beefcake. Beefcake! Alright, Lurrus of the Dream Den. This is in here so that we can start bringing back some things out of the graveyard that are 2 mana or less. So it's just a great card. As of this recording, it's actually in standard and is played in, I think, at least one of the top 4 decks in the meta, at least as of this recording. So it's not our companion in this build, but it does have lifelink and it's a 3/2 body. Very cool, with a way to grab things out of the graveyard. Nighthawk Scavenger, also new from Zendikar Rising. It's got Flying Death Touch and lifelink, and it's got it gets bigger depending on what is in your opponent's graveyards. Nighthawk Scavenger power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. I love that it's not just one opponent, it's all your opponents. So this thing can get very large very quickly. Alright, let's see if I can get this right. Obzedat Ghost Council. I think I did that. It is 1 white, 5/5. When Obzedat Ghost Council enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile Obzedat. If you do, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of your next upkeep. It gains haste. So you can keep flicking this out of the battlefield and bringing it back in, and they keep losing 2 life, you keep gaining 2 life. Just a very, very fun card to have in this build. Rock's Faithmender for 4. It's a lifelink Rhino Monk. A Rhino Monk, how interesting. It is if you would gain life. You gain twice that much life instead. And this was all the way back in 2013. Just got a reprint in Jumpstart. Alright, Serra Ascendant. This thing is bananas in a Lifegain deck in Commander. It is reprinted in Iconic Masters and originally from 2011, and I think that's the most recent. Yep. It's a lifelinker 1/1, but if you have 30 more life, it gets +5/+5. So for 1 mana, you get a 6/6 body with lifelink. Holy shnikes. Alright, Soul Link. Now I put this in here instead of, say, like Vampiric Link or the other ones that cost 1, because whenever enchanted creature deals or is dealt damage, you gain that much life. So if you end up putting this on one of your opponent's creatures to keep from getting whack-a-moled with huge creatures, they don't gain the life, you gain the life, which is great, which is fantastic. All right, next up is Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose. For 3, legendary creature, Vampiric Cleric. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. And for 5 creatures you control, gain lifelink until end of turn. What a great addition to the Lifegain decks, right out of Core 21. Alright, and then we have Vona, Butcher of Magan for 5. It's a 4/4 legendary Vampire Knight. I run this in my Vampire deck, and I love how it performs. You pay 7 life Destroy target non-land permanent. Activate this ability only during your turn. And it's got Vigilance and Lifelink. So as long as you can weather the storm of it coming in with Summoning Sickness, you're going to start being able to pay 7 life and tap it to start wiping the board away. Wormcoil Engine for 6. I love me a Wormcoil Engine. It's got Death Touch, Lifelink, and then if it dies, you create a 3/3 colorless worm artifact, and then also one with Lifelink. So you get a worm artifact that is Death Toucher and a Lifelinker. Whew, that thing is 2 for 1 at its best. Or would that be a 3 for 1? I guess that would be a 3 for 1. And then that brings us full circle to Liesa again. Now, this is a very fun deck. It really levers her mechanics of paying life to bring it back out. So this thing can get killed every turn and you just keep bringing it out. I mean, it's not going to get killed every turn. And then as your opponents keep playing spells, they keep getting ticked down by 2 life, 2 life, 2 life. Plus we have all of those other mechanics that are pinging them for 1 life, for 2 life, for large amounts of life, or doubling it up. Just lots of fun life gain management mechanics with a few alt-win conditions that just make it, you know, hey, time to play game 2. All right, thanks for tuning in. Check out our other episodes. We appreciate you keeping up with us. And if you're new as a subscriber, make sure that you check out our other stuff. All right, thanks. And put stuff in the comments. If you have anything to say, we will respond to all of your comments.